Can't get enough of Kelly and Ramya?
We're now on YouTube for you to indulge in highlights from our show. Crow's Theatre in Toronto is presenting Bad Roads. This is a play about the horrors of the Ukraine war that intertwines love, sex, trauma, loss, and resistance. Sounds like it's encompassing many angles of the discussion, and it aims to help us connect with the Ukraine in ways that are not necessarily possible through the headlines about the wars and the articles we read and the political discussions. So of course that's why we turn to art. And right now we're thrilled to have Ukrainian-Canadian Andrew Kushnir, who's also the director of Bad Roads, to chat more about the production. Andrew, thank you so much for making time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the inspiration. I want to, of course, get into the performance and the ins and outs of everything around that. But what was the inspiration around Bad Roads? When did it come to you and how?
I'm coming on my 1-year anniversary with this script. I was doing a lot of reading last fall in preparation for a series I curated at the Stratford Festival called Encountering Ukraine, Readings in Solidarity. And this was at the top of my list. I was so moved when I read this play. I was so disturbed by it. It's a truly visceral piece of writing, the kind of script you read and you can't shake. You dream about it, you obsess about it, you wonder greatly about how you could possibly stage something of this nature. And then before long, you get obsessed and you hope and you crave to actualize it. And so I've been living with the script for about a year. And yet have been living now nearly 21 months with this full-scale invasion and what it's done to me and my community. And this is one of those extraordinary opportunities where I can twin or in a way unify my work as a Ukrainian-Canadian activist and my work as a Ukrainian-Canadian theater maker. So this script really hits a lot of my keen interests.
Andrew, if you were directing this in 2 years, let's say, do you feel, I mean, I'm going to still imagine that what images, that the way you want to bring it forward, as vivid as it needs to be, as real as it needs to be, where do you feel acceptance? Are we at a time right now where people, I'm never going to say they're ready to have those dreams and think and wake up in the morning and think, I can't get that out of my mind from seeing that play last night. Would you have more trouble putting it on now with people? Look, this is too soon. This is too raw for me. This is too, whether it be producing it, getting it produced, or audience to come see it. Was there things as you, over this last year, said, not just how the heck do I get this to the stage in this form, this particular scene? How, with this impact, do I deal with fallout? Or what? Was there any problem, any concern that made you almost say, I don't think we're ready for this yet?
I think it was a huge question with this piece was, will people come? You know, it's one thing to say that we're going to offer this portal to Ukraine, this you know, as so aptly put, this piece of art that is building a bridge across the world to this war-torn nation, to the Ukrainian nation. It's one thing to say we can build that bridge, but will people cross it with us? And I've been incredibly heartened by Toronto and Torontonians, not just Ukrainians in the diaspora here, and Ukrainian Canadians in the diaspora, but Canadians of all backgrounds coming together in this space at Crows and bearing witness, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what we're asking, or what is being asked of us by the Ukrainian artist who created this work, Natalia Vorozhbit. She's asking us to bear witness to their experience, to their strife, to their grief, to their patriotism, to the ways in which war has mutated their society, their relationships, the ways in which they go about their daily lives, raising their kids, being with their partners, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a big ask. You know, Natalia, I think, even in and of herself, knows it's a big ask to invite audiences from away to sit in that. And I've been very moved. We've had sold out after sold out after sold out performance at Crows, and we've extended the show by a week because the demand was there. And so even though you know, again, you put it so aptly that we live in war-torn and war-worn times. There's a lot of war going on right now, and we could absolutely, in this part of the world, put our blinders on and sort of try to step away from this reality because we have the privilege to. And I've loved the fact that we have, this abundance of community members that are actually showing up and saying, you know what, I want to understand this better.
Right.
I'm willing to witness.
And how is that happening? Andrew, obviously the interpretation or the putting down on paper or speaking to us about it is not ideal in terms of, how to experience this. The experience is to go and check out the actual performance. But I am curious if you were to kind of walk us through what is happening in the performance, or how is it portrayed that people are wanting to, willing to, and afterwards leaving the performance feeling like, yeah, it's more than just the headlines, and we're understanding.
Yeah. Well, it's the beauty of theater, right? It's that we go about it together. It's not a singular, well, in a way, it's a singular experience. You have your own personal encounter with the play, but at the end of the day, you're doing it alongside others.
Shared, yeah.
Right? We're shoulder to shoulder with other Torontonians in the dark, receiving the vibrations of this play in real time, in real space. And that is something that you cannot, talk about an immersive experience. That's about as close as you can come to shy of being in a living room. And I've been in living rooms with folks that have been resettled from Ukraine, shy of having that sort of close encounter. This is a way through the arts, through the proxy of actors, to encounter voices from far away. And I would say anybody who comes to the show, I think, will immediately be struck by the way we've configured the space. You're going to walk into what feels in part like a theater, but also an environment. We've covered the floor in what is mulch, but for us represents the black, extraordinary rich soil of Ukraine. Ukraine is known for its incredibly fertile soil. It's considered the breadbasket of Europe. And so what has it meant to have audience members walk into this environment that in a way feels like it's been perhaps transplanted or carried over from Ukraine in order to, again, give us that immersive, that very in your bones, in your kidneys kind of experience of art?
I have to ask, Andrew, as you put this together, as you sit and watch audiences receive this, I wonder if more thought, again, we go back to World War II, we go back to the Korean War, wars that were so far away from us, and we'd hear the stories afterwards. Now, as you say, live time, that's happening around us. I almost sometimes feel, maybe I'm only speaking for myself, so much conflict in the world in places similar to here. And I wonder if so many of us are realizing this could be right here on our soil.
Well, what I know to be true is it's interesting you raised the Second World War. I descend from the survivors of the Second World War, and in fact, by virtue of the kind of art I make and the kinds of things I research, I've been back to Ukraine. I've traveled the bad roads of Ukraine, in fact, to go to my maternal fathers, my grandfather's village. I've tried to reconnect with that part of the world, which is to this day marked by that war,
right,
marked by decades and centuries of conflict. And the fact of the matter is, as much as we can feel the remove of it, perhaps in Canada, we are surrounded by the descendants of that space and time. My grandparents came to this country, raised my parents, who in turn raised me. I feel deep lineage to that history. And the more I dig and scratch at it, the more I understand why I was raised the way I was raised, why my community is the way it is, why we, have been able, frankly, in this moment to really, really galvanize and fight the erasure that Russia is perpetrating right now, or the attempted erasure of Ukrainian people and Ukrainian lives, because this is not a new story, and if you pay attention to history and you look at the way you've been raised and the stories you've internalized, you realize this is a long story that we're all a part of, and it's living memory. It's in our midst.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that the theater, and this play in particular, can kind of close the gap. It puts us into a starker proximity to something that may feel worlds away. But when you realize that a Ukrainian grandmother is contending with how to raise her granddaughter, which is one of the scenes in the play, you realize that is a pretty universal struggle. What does it mean to actually be a healthy family, be a healthy family in times of deep strife?
Yeah. Well, Andrew, we have the trailer of Bad Roads we want to share with our listeners and viewers. So let's get to that and then we'll continue talking.
Wonderful.
The ways in which Bad Roads cracks open what's happening a world away. It uses human story, human relationship, the dynamics of how we navigate complex situations. We get to experience that in real space and time.
And in this play, I think there's a lot about the unspoken changes that people go through. Whether it's being attracted to someone who they normally wouldn't be attracted to, or you find yourself crossing moral lines that you had drawn in the sand.
There was a tremendous amount of humor in the piece, but it's contextual. Humor is essential for sanity. And the moment I think we feel that characters lose or lack humor in their situations, the more we feel that they're on edge, that they are in trouble.
I'm trying to personally remove judgment on what my characters are going through and trying to understand why they are making those choices. For them, it can seem like this is the only choice I have to get to where I need to get to next.
This play is so much about love, I've discovered. Of course, it's about war, but it's so much about love and how love is mutated and impacted by war.
I think Bad Roads are choices. Drama is made of bad choices. So this drama is made of bad roads.
I want to go to that humor piece. It's so interesting because a lot of times I think we talk about humor being healing, humor after conflict, humor in the way that you remember an argument with your partner or with a family member, kind of breaking that ice, right? And well, for me, it almost seems far-fetched to think of humor in the sense of war, in the sense of this scale of devastation. Is there anything you want to say to that, Andrew? And this is not me resisting the idea. This is just like, wow, that is so, beyond my current capability to even understand how to think of humor in these ways.
Yeah, I know. I think we often think of humor being something that comes after. And I think Ukraine and other contexts, and I can speak to a few other examples, I think there are contexts wherein humor is not the after, it's the through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much how people cope with the senseless, with the incomprehensible. Humor is a way to keep in touch with some sort of tender bit of our humanity in the face of forces that are trying to eradicate it. And so humor is survival. Humor, as Diego puts it, humor has something to do with sanity. When we can laugh together, it's like we're shaking something off, or trying to at least. And I think something that anybody who's been following, for instance, the meme culture out of Ukraine since the full-scale invasion, I mean, humor is alive and well for Ukrainians. Even as they are confronted by, all of this genocidal violence, they're going, how do we keep human? How do we keep from feeling like we are being hollowed out? And sometimes laughter is the best medicine.
Day to day.
Exactly. And I'd say this play, the humor is something you got to squint your ears for. It's not, this is not a rollicking comedy by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
It's a very, very, if we can even touch the word comedy, it's a dark, dark comedy. But I'm reminded of other, contexts. I just worked on a piece called Casey and Diana at the Stratford Festival, and we're remounting that this coming year. That was, the play takes place in an AIDS hospice. This is in the early 90s, right? It's a really heavy context, and yet, my goodness, the humor that environment elicited in order to survive, again, the unfathomable.
And it forces us to take that angle, right? To let our minds go there to heal. Andrew, we got to wrap with you. I'm so sorry. I wish we could keep talking about this, but it's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best.
And for bringing this to us, Andrew. It's tremendous.
Well, I really appreciate you spotlighting. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
You can catch Kelly and Ramya weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on AMI.